2.
Welcome to the opening episode of the Madden Report. I'm your co-host, James Madden, joined alongside my other co-host, Coach Madden. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, James. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right now that March Madness is finally upon us. I feel like we've waited forever since, a normal March Madness. It's been a couple years since we've had fans in buildings, but, the first 4 kicked off last night. We saw 2 tremendous games between Texas Southern and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. The Tigers of Texas Southern did pull that one off. And then the second game was another great game, a defensive battle, as everyone could have expected, between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Wyoming Cowboys. Indiana pulled off that one, 8-point win, 66-58. They'll move on to take on another tough opponent that loves their defense, the 5-seeded St. Mary's Gales. And the first 4 continues tonight. We have 2 matchups. The 16-seed matchup, the winner will go on to play Arizona. Wright State Raiders versus the Bryant Bulldogs. Coach, what do you think about that one?
Well, obviously it's a local team with Bryant. They're still fairly new in the NCAA Division I because they just moved up 2 to 3 years ago. I'm not sure on that timing, but they are still fresh in it. I think they'll get through. They got a little buzz going on. I know the softball coach down there, Nick French, and he always tells me that they're going to start getting it going. So this might be the time to start doing it.
I totally agree with you. Peter Kiss, he's the NCAA Division I leading scorer, averaging around 28 points per game. He's been tremendous this season, and frankly, I don't see how Wright State will have an answer for him. I saw Coach Nagy, Wright State's coach, Coach Nagy's press conference yesterday. He said it's going to be tough to stop him, as everyone's seen this season, obviously averaging 28 a game. And Wright State, he said the thing he loves about his team is they don't have a leading scorer. You never know who's going to step up. They got 7-8 guys that have played productive minutes, and that's why they were 4 seed in the Horizon League tournament, and they were able to pull that one off, kind of an upset win. But I do have the Bryant Bulldogs moving on to San Diego to take on Arizona. And the nightcap in Dayton, we got Rutgers, Notre Dame, 2 Power 5 schools. Should be a fun one. What do you think about that one?
Rutgers, they're usually middle of the pack, lower end in that conference. So they we'll see on Notre Dame end. They don't score very well, and I think you mentioned earlier that they had a win versus Kentucky, and that was why they're in. But they don't score very much, and we'll see how that one goes. But it's two middle of the pack conference teams in their respective conferences, so it should be a tight one.
And again, I couldn't agree more. This is it's kind of similar to last night's matchup between Indiana and Wyoming. It's kind of 2 grinder teams. Rutgers is a team, they play physical like every team in the Big Ten does, and they have a lot of experience. You got guys like Geo Baker, Ron Harper Jr., Paul Mulcahy, all junior, seniors that have contributed throughout their entire careers, and that's the same deal in South Bend with Mike Bray's Fighting Irish. You got Prentice Hub, who's I believe a senior, Nate Leshevsky. So just a lot of senior depth and senior leadership. So it's just going to lead to a good game tonight, and it's going to, in my opinion, go back and forth, go either way. So without further ado, we should dive right in to the bracket. We'll head over to the West region. The first-seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs, top overall seed, and the 16th-seeded Georgia State Panthers. I'm sure you're probably thinking the same thing I am, but I don't see Georgia State pulling this one off. But what do you think?
No, I agree with you. Gonzaga they've been around a while. They're well coached, and I don't foresee any surprises in this one.
I couldn't agree more. Again, I don't think there's much to talk about. I think Gonzaga wins that one by maybe 35-40. But we'll move right into another. That's going to be a fun one. It's an early game tomorrow afternoon, which is Thursday. It's the 9-seeded Memphis Tigers taking on the 8-seeded Boise State Broncos. 2 very different teams. Memphis is a team that's really young, besides their leading scorer DeAndre Williams, but they're a young team that struggled early in the season. I think they started maybe 6-8, 6-9, but they've kind of started to figure it out. DeAndre Williams has stepped up huge. The young freshman, I believe he's only 17, Jalen Duren, has played terrific minutes as their starting center. Then you got guys like Jordan Lomax, you got Tyler Harris, who have contributed on the wings, and then Boise State, a very experienced team for Leon Rice, and they were the tournament and regular season champions in the Mountain West. What do you think about this one?
I'm going to stick with the more known conference with Memphis. I think Memphis will. Well, I don't think it'll be an easy task for them, but I think they'll end up winning, 5 to 10, in that 5 to 10 range.
Yeah, like you said, it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a real close, hard-fought battle. Boise State's a tough physical team, just like all those Mountain West teams were this season. And I'm actually going to go with the Boise State Broncos. I think this team just has the leadership and the experience needed to pull it off in March. And Memphis has a ton of talent, probably more talent than Boise State does. But we've just seen Boise State. They're 27-7, and they've just played well as a team together this season. So I think they pull this one off. But now we move over to our first 5-12 game. These are always a fun one. We got the 5th-seeded UConn Huskies taking on the 12th-seeded New Mexico State Aggies. Excuse me. Who do you got in this one?
I'm going to stick with, when we start to get into 5-12, that's when you start to see the upsets a little bit more. Obviously, the 8-9 is, they're very evenly matched. But 5-12 is when you start getting the surprises. I like UConn in this one, and I know I'm staying local, which, I'm staying biased to New England. But I like UConn, and they play in a better conference. I like the whole conference deal, once you get outside, it's a little bit different, but inside they beat each other up a little bit in that conference.
And I totally agree. A 12-5 upset is very common and very popular among bracket makers. New Mexico State certainly has had a successful season, 26-6, but I've said all season I'm a huge fan of Coach Hurley's Huskies team. I just think they've kind of been on the wrong end of the injury report, kind of, and they've had a ton of injuries. Adama Sanogo, first-team All-Big East player, has battled injuries. Tyrese Martin, a cook. But now that they're kind of getting fully healthy, I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. And I frankly think if they do end up matching up with Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, I think they have the tools and just the talent needed to beat Gonzaga. And we've seen they've beat Villanova this season. They beat Providence. So it's going to be tough for any team to knock out UConn in this tournament, and definitely a top dog to maybe even make a run at the Final Four. But next up, we got 4-seeded Arkansas Razorbacks taking on another local team, 13-seeded Vermont Catamounts. What do you think about this one?
This one is an interesting one because Vermont made a run in the America East, and they won, pretty easily in every single game that they played. Now, I will stick with the SEC in this one. Vermont, I think, will give a fight, but the SEC still is going to reign supreme in this one.
I'm with you again on this one. I think Arkansas is definitely not going to have a smooth ride to win over Vermont. Vermont's a team that can score the ball with the best of them. They shoot the ball terrifically from the outside. Ryan Davis, the America East Player of the Year, is averaging upwards towards 22, 23 a game. But I just think Arkansas's length and their athleticism is going to be too much. They're one of the few teams in the country that have consistent big men. They have, 3 or 4 6'8", 6'9" forwards that can get to the outside. They can get downhill past their defender, use their speed and their length. Got Audiese Tony, Stanley Amude, even Jalen Williams, who's done a great job defensively on the inside as well as rebounding for the Razorbacks. But the only thing I think could hurt them is their inability to really shoot from the outside. Aside from J.D. Note, who was a first-team All-SEC and third-team National All-American, I don't know how their guard play will fare. So that's the only reason I would ever consider the Vermont pick, because that Vermont is a very popular pick, but I think the Arkansas Razorbacks pull this one off. And we got the next one. This is going to be a fun one. The 6th-seeded Alabama Crimson Tide versus the winner of tonight's game, Rutgers and Notre Dame. What do you think about this one?
Alabama is explosive, and they're another top-end SEC team. And if it is Notre Dame, like I said earlier, they can't score. They struggled in the ACC. They struggled in the ACC tournament to score, but they are a defensive juggernaut too with Mike Bray. That's been his calling card, has been the defensive end. But I still Alabama has a little bit of experience, so I'm sticking with Alabama.
Definitely. And I'm actually real excited for this one on Friday night. Alabama, as we've seen, when Alabama is good, they are among the best teams in the country. We've seen they've beat Gonzaga, they've beat Houston, but then they've lost games to Missouri, Ole Miss. So Alabama's inconsistency is really what is a red flag for me, because they're a team that relies so heavily on three-pointers, and Nate Oates has said he doesn't want his guys shooting mid-range jump shots. He wants them shooting layups or dunks or three-pointers. So teams like that really sketch me out come tournament time, because if you have one off night from the outside, it kind of is a recipe for a loss. And I think if Rutgers is able to beat Notre Dame tonight, I think Rutgers will beat Alabama because of their physicality and their defense. I just think it'll be too much for an Alabama team that loves to shoot the outside shot. But if Notre Dame is able to beat Rutgers, I think, given Notre Dame's inability to score, I think Alabama will just overpower them with their three-point shooting, and they'll take care of business there. Next up, we got a 3 versus 14 matchup. Texas Tech versus the Big Sky champs, Montana State. What do you think?
I'm sticking with the higher end conference here, definitely in this one. Montana State is, they've had a nice season, but Texas Tech, grinds it out night in, night out in the Big 12, right? In the Big 12, the Big 12 is very top heavy, and the bottom just kind of beats each other up.
Yeah, and I've been a huge fan of Mark Adams' project he's really done. They were ranked maybe the worst available Power 5 job when Chris Beer left for Texas last year, but Mark Adams' job as the Texas Tech coach has been truly tremendous. He went out and got a couple transfers, and their motto has been the defense never rests, and that's kind of the recipe you need in March when it comes to winning big games. Montana State, a team that can score, like similar to Vermont, can score the best of them, but Texas Tech's defense is just absolutely amazing, ranked first by Ken Palm in the nation, and defense really wins championships. So I think Texas Tech pulls this one off over the 14th seed and heads into the next round, as well as I think they actually are able to get to the Elite Eight this year. But next up, we got 7-seeded Michigan State, Tom Izzo, March Izzo, nothing like it, and 10-seed Davidson Wildcats. What are your thoughts on this game?
Michigan State has been down a little bit this year, but it is always the Izzo train. Izzo finds a way to get it done, and I'm really not expecting that to be different. But Davidson has a history of the upset. 4 or 5, just off the top of my head, I can think of, going way back. But I think Izzo in Michigan State will prevail.
I'm totally with you on this one. It's a tough choice. 7 versus 10 games are always a lot of fun. Tough to pick who you have winning in your bracket, but we've learned from the past couple of years you can never go against March Izzo. And Davidson's a team that loves the outside shot. You had the best three-point percentage in Hyung-Jung Lee, the South Korean international. But Davidson can hit the outside shot maybe better than any team in the country. But I just think, like you said, Tom Izzo and Michigan State always find a way to win. And that's all you really have to do in March. It doesn't have to be pretty. You just need to find a way to survive and advance. And they have the tools needed to make it run. They have the talent. They have the depth. They have, obviously, in the Big Ten, the physicality. So definitely I got Michigan State moving on in this one. And then to wrap up the West region first round, we got 2-seeded Duke taking on the 15-seeded, the Big West tournament champions, the Cal State Fullerton Titans. I'm sure you're going to say the same thing as me, but what do you think about this one?
This one is, I'm very biased to this one because Duke is my team. So in Coach K's last year, and they haven't played very well down the stretch. They obviously won the regular season, didn't win on Coach K night, and then struggled a little bit in the middle of the ACC tournament. But I am going with Coach K in his last year, at least for the first couple of rounds, and then it gets a little tighter after that. If it ends up being Michigan State Duke, that'll be a fun one for the weekend the weekend game. So, but I'm sticking with Duke. I don't think that Cal State Fullerton will have enough firepower to stay with Duke.
And I totally agree again. Though we have seen a couple 15-2 seeds. We saw one last year. Oral Roberts beat Ohio State. But I don't see it happening. Duke has too much talent and too many players that are capable of dropping 20, 25 on you. We've seen someone that's actually really impressed me this season has been A.J. Griffin. His production has skyrocketed at the beginning of the year. He's a 5-star McDonald's All-American coming out of high school, but the beginning of the year, he kind of struggled. He was kind of coming off the bench playing kind of a role piece for Duke, but he went through a stretch in early February where he averaged 24 a game, and he's really been probably their most important player. And as he goes, Duke goes. And if he can continue that production going through March, I see Duke as a team maybe no one can beat. They have the talent. They have the tools to win it all. So definitely Duke pulling off this one over Cal State Fullerton. But now we move over to the East region. We got the top-seeded Baylor Bears taking on 16-seeded Norfolk State Spartans. I'm sure you could say the same thing as the last game, but what are your thoughts and what is your prediction for this one?
Baylor's been around the block the last couple of years. I'm going with Baylor. Norfolk State has had a couple nice years here. I believe they won their conference tournament last year, or 2 years ago, whenever the last round of conference tournaments were. But Baylor is just going to be too top-heavy for Norfolk State.
And I once again agree. Baylor is a team that not many actually expected to do so well. They lost a bunch of key players. They lost Maceo Teague, their point guard Jared Butler last year, Davion Mitchell as well. All they lost to the NBA draft. But Scott Drew's done a terrific job like he's done his entire career at Baylor and finding a way to win games. And we've seen it. Their defense is once again tremendous. They had first-team all Big 12 player James Akinjo. He transferred in from Arizona. He's been terrific. And if their three guards are able to do what they've done all season, then I see them as a team that's tough to beat. And a lot of fans in college basketball have been down on them this year. And it's just they've very similar to UConn. They've had trouble staying healthy. You had Jonathan Chama-Chachua, who was a terrific piece of their national championship run last year. He's out for the year with a torn ACL. You've had Adam Flagler, LJ Cryer. They've all battled injuries. So now they seem to be getting healthy at the right time. And if they're going to need other guys to step up, Jeremy Sohan's done a great job for them, as well as they're going to need Matthew Meyer to step up big time like he did last year if they want to make another deep run in the tournament. So definitely Baylor advancing over Norfolk State. And next up, we got a game I'm very interested in is 8-seeded North Carolina, who made a deep run in the ACC tournament, and 9-seeded Marquette Golden Eagles. So what are your predictions for that one?
I'm going with the Big East in this one in Marquette. North Carolina, Roy Williams' first year out, I think they're down a little bit. And the Big East, they kind of just beat each other up night in, night out, and get each other prepared for the NCAA tournament. I don't think that North Carolina's recruiting class that came in was very good, but it's still gonna be a good game. I could see this game being, 10 to 12, maybe even as much as 14 of a spread. But I see Marquette moving along.
Yeah, and I'm very intrigued in this one. I think North Carolina, they have the talent. It's just they haven't really played well together, especially early on in the season. They have a new coach. Like you said, they had a tough recruiting class because there's always red flags when you have a new coach coming in and you don't know how the culture is going to be. But something that's going to be big for me is how well Armando Bacot plays for them, because I don't know if Marquette has an answer for a dominant big like Armando Bacot, because they rely pretty heavily on their guard play. You have Justin Lewis, who was a first-team All-Big East player. You have Darryl Morcell, who's second-team All-Big East. So two top-tier guards in the Big East. But if Armando Bacot is able to do what he's done all season, that's go out there, get 20 points, 15 rebounds, it's going to be a nightmare for a matchup with Marquette. But I have North Carolina moving on. They're rolling right now. They lost to a Virginia Tech team that was red hot in the ACC tournament. But it's going to be a grinder like every Big East basketball team plays. It's going to be a maybe 60-55 game because the Big East is all about beating each other up in physicality and defense. But I got North Carolina moving on. So we got another 5-12 matchup. This one actually catches my attention. Is we got the St. Mary's Gales, who lost to Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference Championship, as well as the Indiana Hoosiers, who beat The Wyoming last night by 8. Indiana's a tough defensive team. They're rolling. They're red hot. Meant to the Big Ten semifinals. What do you think's going to happen in this one?
I like Indiana in this one. The West Coast, the WAC is down a little bit this year, but the Big Ten I think is right around. It usually is, and they kind of, like I said with the Big East, they kind of once you get in the middle of the pack, they kind of beat each other up a little bit. I like Indiana.
This is another game this has caught my attention a lot. It's going to be, I believe it's 7:27 on Thursday night, so definitely tune into this one. Indiana's a team very similar to all the Big East teams. They love to play with physicality. Their defense has been tremendous this season. I really love what Mike Woodson's done with the program in his first year because Indiana, this is actually their first tournament appearance since 2016. And Mike Woodson's done a great job. He's kind of helped bring Indiana basketball back to a little bit of relevancy. And the only thing that really raises a red flag is their guard play. St. Mary's is a team that has had terrific guard play with their experience, but Indiana, they've actually received some great production from Xavier Johnson the past couple of games. He transferred him from Pittsburgh. But if he's able to, play like he did last night, rock solid, play make, he's able to get downhill, score from the outside, it opens up the floor for one of the best players in the country, Trace Jackson-Davis. So if Xavier Johnson is able to do what he's done the past 5-6 games, then it's going to be a tough game for St. Mary's, and Indiana will pull that off. But with his inconsistency and how much I like this Randy Bennett St. Mary's team, I'm going to have to go with St. Mary's. Yep, St. Mary's. Next up, we got the 4-seeded UCLA Bruins, who went on a miraculous run last year as an 11 seed to the Final Four. And the Zips of Akron, 13 seed. What do you think about this one?
I'm going with the upset here, James. I think the Pac-10 is a little overrated. Obviously they have higher end recruits in classes, but I just think overall it's overrated, and I think Akron will get the upset because that conference is decent.
And I like the upset pick, but I'm going to have to go UCLA. I like this UCLA team a lot, but they have struggled this season, and I actually got a chance to watch an Akron game last week, and Ali, one of their forwards, he's averaging 21 a game or so. He's been really impressive, and I kind of view him as a draft pick. It's funny to say maybe a first-round draft pick coming out of Akron, but what he's done for the Zips, he's kind of carried them single-handedly to the tournament, and he's going to pose a matchup nightmare. He's 6'9". He's able to score from anywhere on the floor. And UCLA is not a team that really plays the best defense. They kind of are a team that will put up 90, give up 85. But I'm going to have to go UCLA. I don't think they fall to the 13th-seeded Akron, but it's March. That's the beauty of it. Anything can happen. But next up, we got 6-seeded Texas, who's had a bit of a disappointing year, to say the least, and the 11th-seeded Virginia Tech Hokies, who won the ACC tournament as the 7th-place team. What are your thoughts on this one?
I like Virginia Tech in this one. I think, like you said, Texas was a little bit underachievers, but Virginia Tech made that run, obviously beating Duke in that ACC championship game. They just kind of getting together at the right time.
And I'm with you on this one. I like the Virginia Tech run they've gone on, and them being seeded as an 11th seed kind of makes you wonder, if they didn't win the ACC tournament, what really happens? We saw Texas A&M go deep in the SEC tournament. They're not in the field. So Virginia Tech is rolling. Texas, on the other hand, is doing maybe the polar opposite. They lost the first round of the Big 12 tournament. They lost to a tough TCU team. They were up 20 with around 7 minutes to go in the second half. Blew that one. But Chris Beard's team's definitely underperformed. They're a team that they don't have the best chemistry. They have the talent. They have the tools, but they don't really play all that well together as a team. It's Chris Beard, his first year at Texas, as well as a ton of transfers. You had Trey Mitchell transferring from UMass. You had Christian Bishop from Creighton, and Timmy Allen. You had Marcus Carr. But it's just a team that they haven't really felt that chemistry yet, and they obviously were upset last year in the first round by 14-seeded Abilene Christian. But I'm going to have to go with the upset pick as well, take Virginia Tech to move into the second round here. And next up, we got a Purdue team that's third seeded in the East region, as well as maybe the best offensive team in the country, taking on another local foe, the 14th seeded Yale Bulldogs, who won the Ivy League tournament last Sunday. What do you think about this one?
I'm going to stick with Purdue on this one. Yale, I think, has had a nice season, but the Ivy League is probably a little bit down this year. Harvard isn't, what they have been. Brown, I know, has been lurking around a little bit, but Yale, I think, is going to meet their maker with Purdue.
And I'm going to go with the top choice of Purdue. Purdue's maybe one of, if not the best offensive team in the country, and I don't see many teams that can score the ball like Purdue can. Maybe, Gonzaga. But Purdue can go out there and they can give you 100 points. You got Jaden Ivey, who could very well be a top 5 pick. Travion Williams, Zach Edey, maybe one of the best front court duos in the country. And Yale, I don't think, has the scoring that's capable of pulling off such a big upset. You got Azar Swain, who was one of the leading scorers in the Ivy League, but that's about it for them, so I don't see Yale pulling off anything crazy. Then we got another matchup that I'm actually really excited to see, a mid-major matchup. Disappointed these two teams drew each other in the first round because I would have loved to see a Power 5 team play each of them, but 7-seeded Murray State, who is 30-2, taking on the San Francisco Dons, who are 10-seeded.
I like San Francisco in this one. Don't really know much about them, but I know Murray State. They're 30-2 because they play in a conference where they can do that. San Francisco, I think the West Coast plays a little bit different style. West Coast programs play a little bit of a different style than what Murray State is used to, so I'm going with San Francisco.
And for me, this is kind of a 50-50. I like the Murray State team they have. They have a ton of depth. They have KJ Williams, who was a part of their team that upset, I believe it was Marquette in 2019, that team that had John Morant. And they have Tevin Brown, who was also part of the team. I believe they combined for 34 points that game. So 2 players who have been around the block and have been in the NCAA tournament. Then you got San Francisco, who's played Gonzaga twice. They played Gonzaga tough both times, a team that really values its defense, and a team that I think is not an easy out for anybody in the tournament. So I'm going to have to go Murray State. I just like the team that they have, but it's kind of a trap game for me because San Francisco plays the type of defense that Murray State isn't really accustomed to because they get so used to playing kind of lower competition where San Francisco is kind of tournament ready, playing top teams like St. Mary's, Gonzaga. But whoever wins this game, I think, is going to be a tough matchup for Kentucky in the second round because both teams are very experienced, very talented, and no matter what, a tough out. But I'm going to have to go Murray State. Next up, we got another 2 versus 15 matchup. Kentucky taking on St. Peter's, who won the MAC. Surprisingly, not Iona. But what do you think about this one?
I think St. Peter's is going to be overmatched a little bit. Coach Cal is my second behind Coach K. Obviously, he was at UMass for all those years during the Canby years, but Kentucky, I just think is going to be too big, too long, too much experience for St. Peter's.
And I've said this all season about this Kentucky team this is a scary combination. Coach Cal and experienced players. They only have one freshman that's really in the rotation. That's Ty Washington. But what kind of separates himself from other freshmen is he doesn't play like a freshman. He plays like he's a junior or senior. He's been in the NCAA for 3-4 years. And you got a team that's really been built off of transfers. You have Severe Wheeler, who transferred in from Georgia. Oscar Sheboy, who's most likely going to win National Player of the Year, averages 18 points a game, maybe 14 rebounds. And then Keon Brooks Jr., who's been in the program for 3 years, in his junior year with Kentucky. And that's, in my opinion, maybe the best starting 5 in the country. And, you got Kellen Grady, who scored 2,000 points at Davidson, who can really hit a shot from anywhere over half court. But definitely, I think Kentucky overpowers St. Peter's on the glass, from the perimeter, as well as on the defensive end of the floor, and is able to move into the second round here. Now we head over to the South region, which is a region that I'm really excited for. A lot of great matchups. We got Arizona, the number 1 seed, number 2 overall seed in the country, taking on the winner of tonight's Wright State Bryant game. I'm sure you could say the same thing as me, but who do you got in this one?
I'm going to stick with Arizona. I know I said what I said about the Pac-10 a little while ago. or earlier. But Wright State and Bryant probably will whoever wins that game, they are going to the end of the road will be with them, just because Arizona is obviously a number one seed, but the conference play in general will be a tough end for either of those two teams with Arizona.
I totally agree. Once again, this Arizona team has shown why they're a number one seed this season, 31-3. They've been able to use terrific guard play from Benedict Mathurin, who was a second-team All-American, as well as he's a National Player of the Year candidate. And then, in my opinion, the best front court in college basketball, you got Dalen Terry, as well as Tabellis, and Christian Coloco. All players who are able to, get out there, go get 10, 12 rebounds a game, as well as Tabellis has been one of their leading scorers, averaging around 18, 19 a game. But I really love what Tommy Lloyd's done in his first year at Arizona, longtime assistant of Mark Few at Gonzaga, I believe 21 years. And Sean Miller really left this program as a dumpster fire with all the recruiting violations, all the illegal activities that they were doing, and it kind of looked like Arizona basketball was doomed for a few years, but Tommy Lloyd's really done a tremendous job turning this program around and has put them back in the picture to win it all. Next up, we have another matchup that's an 8-9 matchup. Those are always fun. We got Seton Hall, who's 21-10, taking on TCU. What do you think, and what do you are your predictions about this one?
8-9 is always, the committee feels that, they mirror each other. Usually that's what happens in an 8-9 game. I'm going with TCU in this one. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I'm thinking that they probably have a bunch of Texas kids, tough, gritty Texas kids. And Seton Hall is, again, one of the middle of the pack on that Big East Conference. And I'm going to go with TCU on this one.
And I'm also going to go with TCU. I'm a big believer in this TCU team, I really love what Jamie Dixon's done. Also, another first-year coach at TCU, came in from Pittsburgh. But TCU, this is a tough team. They really don't make it pretty, but they find ways to win. And this is a team, especially if you're Arizona, you don't want to see in the second round. They play a tough style of basketball where they're going to go lay a body on you. They're not afraid to, get 6-7 fouls in the first 5 minutes of the first half. But this is a team that beat Kansas early this year in Fort Worth, but then lost by, I believe, 5 points in Lawrence the next Thursday night. So this is a team they're going to be a tough out no matter who they play. And I like this TCU team a lot. Speaking of gritty Texas kids, one player I've actually been huge on all season long has been Micah Peavy. He's second year, he's a sophomore. He transferred in from Texas Tech once Chris Beard left, but he is the definition of a gritty player. He plays tough, hard defense, and I think if he's able to kind of figure it out a little bit more offensively, he has the capability and the upside of being a lottery pick, but definitely TCU for me. Next up, we got another 5-12, which is kind of, I feel, might be a trap game for a Houston team that's been inconsistent at times this year and has battled injuries. We got Houston versus UAB.
I'm going to stick with Houston on this one. UAB probably has had a nice season like they usually do. They typically either win their conference or they at least make a run to the championship game. But I'm going with Houston. They're fairly well coached, and I think that's going to make the difference in this matchup.
I'm going to also go Houston, though, like I said, I think might be a trap game for Houston. UAB has, in my opinion, one of the best point guards in the nation in Jordan Walker. He's averaging 22 a game or so, up close to 6-7 assists. And Jelly Walker, his nickname is, he's been tremendous. He was one of the best players in the Conference USA this year. But I just think Houston's experience and their – what am I trying to say? I just think their experience, and they went deep last year in the NCAA tournament. They made the Final Four. The only thing, for me, it's kind of similar to last year's matchup of Villanova-Winthrop. Villanova was without their best player, Colin Gillespie. Houston's without their best player and leading scorer, Marcus Sasser. He's out for the year after he underwent ankle surgery in February. But I think Houston's they're a well-coached team. They play great defense. I'm a huge fan of Kelvin Sampson, so I think Houston's able to pull this one off. And next up, this is a game I'm really excited for. We got 4-seeded Illinois, who's been one of the most inconsistent teams, but one of the most talented teams in the country, and the Chattanooga Mocs. What do you think about this?
I'm going with the upset here, James. Chattanooga has been in it last 4 or 5 years. I think they've been in it 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. But Illinois is kind of trick or treat a little bit, like you say, inconsistent. I'm going with the upset.
I'm feeling the same thing. I'm huge on this Chattanooga team. They have very good guard play. They have the SoCon Player of the Year, Malachi Smith, as well as, if you haven't seen that shot, David Jean-Baptiste, he hit an absolute beauty of a buzzer beater in overtime in the SoCon Championship to beat Furman. But I'm also going to go with Chattanooga in this one. The only thing that is kind of a red flag for me is their big man play. Kofi Coburn has kind of established himself as one of the best big men in the nation for Illinois, and I'm not really sure if they'll have an answer for him. So it's going to be a tall task for Silvio De Sousa, who's a former Kansas big man, to deal with Kofi Coburn down low. But if they can, limit him to maybe 12, 14 points, then they're going to kind of force a team that doesn't really shoot the ball well out from the outside to shoot the ball, which is guys like Trent Frazier, Alfonso Plummer, who's had a tremendous season for them. But I'm going to have to go with the upset pick as well and choose Chattanooga to move on. And we move on to the first game of the round of 32. That's going to tip off Thursday, March 17th at 12:15 p.m. We got Colorado State taking on the 11 seed of Michigan, who was actually a controversial pick to be in the tournament. But what is your prediction for that one?
I am going with the upset, which I really don't think is an upset. Yes, they're 17-14, in their 11th seed, but I'm going with Michigan just because of the high-end conference that they play in, and they're just gonna, I think this will be one of the better games just because Michigan wants to prove everybody wrong and let them know that they belong.
And I couldn't agree more. This is going to be a terrific game. I think it's kind of going to be I think it might be an overtime game. I love this Colorado State team. One of the best teams in the country, ranked, I believe, 23rd in the AP poll. And this Michigan team, they have a ton of experience, a ton of talent. They have a couple 5-stars in their team. But I'm going to go with Colorado State. Michigan, actually, a couple hours ago, they just announced their starting point guard, Devontae Jones. He's going to be out for tomorrow's game with a concussion. And frankly, I don't know if they have an answer for David Roddy, Colorado State's point guard. He's proved to be one of the best point guards in the country. He was first-team All-Mountain West, and a Mountain West that was a lot better than normal this year. So I'm going to go with the favorite pick, you could say. I do think Michigan is favored in the spread, so I'm going to go with Colorado State, though. And next up, we got Tennessee, who a lot think shouldn't have been a 3 seed. A team that's rolling. They won the SEC tournament, taking on the Longwood Lancers, who were in their first NCAA tournament appearance of all time. What is your prediction for this one?
I like Tennessee in this one. Like you say, they won the SEC tournament, and I just think that every time I was watching that game, and I just thought Kentucky was gonna make a run and end up winning that game by 6 or 7. Tennessee didn't let that happen. I like Tennessee in this one.
I'm with you on this one. I like this Tennessee team a lot. Actually, in my bracket, I did have them actually getting to the Final Four. This is one of the normal Rick Barnes teams. They're grinders, and they find ways to win. And compared to other Rick Barnes teams we've seen in the past, they have the ability to score now. And something I've really been impressed with has been their kind of perimeter play. We've seen Santiago Vescovi. He's been terrific from the outside. Kennedy Chandler, who's 5-star freshman, he's been one of the best players in the SEC. And then you got a guy, Josiah Jordan-James. His production and transformation as a player has been terrific for Tennessee. And I think this is a team that not only can make the Final Four, I think they can go all the way. They have the tools. They have the coaching staff to do so. So I think Tennessee pulls this one off. And we got 7-seeded Ohio State taking on the Cinderella team, 10-seeded Loyola Chicago. What is your prediction for this one?
This is 8-9, 7-10. I don't think it's really too far-fetched of an upset, but I am going with Loyola. I just think they have experience. They're probably a little bit down from where they were a couple years ago when they made their statement. But I like tough Chicago kids, and I'm going with Loyola.
I'm with you on this one. I like the semi-upset pick of 10-seeded Loyola Chicago over Ohio State. Ohio State's been struggling recently. I loved this Ohio State team at the beginning of the year, but they haven't really been able to figure it out. They've lost, I believe, 6 of their last 7. And Chris Holtman, he's a terrific coach. He's done a great job in the past few years there. But I think Loyola Chicago has the tools needed to win this game. I like what Drew Valentine's done his first year with the Ramblers. Obviously, he was a long-time assistant, but I'm going to go with Loyola Chicago on this one. And the final game of the South Regional, we got 2-seeded Villanova taking on the Blue Hens of Delaware. What do you think about this one?
I think that the guard play, the size, the coaching is going to be way too much for the Blue Hens of Delaware. I just think this is not even going to be a close game. It'll be 25-30 at a minimum.
I'm with you on this one. Delaware was a team, they finished 5th in their Colonial standings. They really probably shouldn't be in the tournament, but they went on a nice little run in the Colonial tournament. But I think Villanova takes care of business here. They have a ton of experience. Sorry. And, yeah, they have a ton of experience. Jermaine Samuels. Oh, I have another one coming. So, yeah, Jermaine Samuels is a local kid. Saw him play for Expressions a couple years ago. But Colin Gillespie, one of the most experienced point guards, one of the most skilled point guards in the country. So I think Jay Wright and the Wildcats take care of business. And we move on to the final region, a region that CBS Sports reporter John Rothstein has named the region of vulnerability. We got a region where a lot of upsets are deemed possible. First, we got top-seeded Kansas taking on 16-seeded Texas Southern. Another 1-16 matchup where an upset probably isn't likely, but what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I just like Kansas. I mean, Bill Self is one of the top 5 coaches in the country. I think he'll have his guys ready to go.
I'm the same way. I don't think we really need a big in-depth report about this one, but I think Kansas takes care of business. They are a tough team. Not the same teams we've seen from Bill Self in the past, but I think they take care of business. We got 8-seeded San Diego State versus 9-seeded Creighton. That's going to be another terrific matchup. A late game, I believe, on Thursday night. What do you think about this one?
I like Creighton in this one. 8-9, similar to each other, obviously with the seedings. The Blue Jays are just in that Big East, and they just kind of beat each other up and like I said earlier, get each other prepared. I like Creighton.
I think this is going to be a bloodbath. Not literally, but I really like the San Diego State team. They have a ton of experience. I love Brian Dutcher as a coach. He's kind of built a mid-major dynasty, you could call it. We saw them last year. They were a 6th seed. The year COVID canceled the tournament, they would have been upwards near a 2 seed. But I like San Diego State in this one. I think their defense is going to pose a threat for anybody. Ranked 2nd in the country by Ken Pom for defense. Creighton's a team. They lost their starting point guard, Ryan Nemhard. Only a freshman who's had a terrific season for them. They lost him to a fractured wrist. But I think San Diego State pulls this one off and gets into the next round. We got our last 5-12 matchup between Iowa, who's been terrific all season, surprisingly enough, and 12-seeded Richmond Spiders. They went on a little bit of a run. We're 6th in the A-10, but they won their conference tournament, and now they're in the tournament. What do you think?
I like the Spiders in this one, James. I think Iowa, at the end of the day, if you're ranking Power 5 conferences, they're probably 4. I just like, they made their run. They beat the higher end of the A-10. I like this. I like Richmond in this matchup.
And I think this is a more than possible 12-5 upset. This is a Richmond team that's rolling. They beat Davidson in the A-10 final. They beat Dayton, who ended up being the first team out in the field. But I'm going to have to go with Iowa in this one. Iowa is a team that has proven they're one of the best offensive scoring teams in the country. Keegan Murray has been terrific this season. Definitely a National Player of the Year candidate. And I just think their offense is going to be too much for Richmond, and they're going to take care of business here. Next up, we got, which might be my favorite upset pick, we got the 4-seeded Providence Friars taking on the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State, the 13 seed. What do you think?
I am going to differ with you, James, on this one. I like the Ed Cooley train. You know, he's going to have his guys prepared, and I like the Big East in general, even more so than some of these Power 5 conferences. I like PC. I think that, like I said, Ed Cooley's going to have them prepared, and, you know, they'll be good to go.
And like you said, I love Ed Cooley as a coach. He's done a terrific job. A team that was picked to finish 8th in the Big Ten has ended up winning their first ever Big Ten regular season title. Ed Cooley, you know, has done a great job. They're a team, they don't have any draft prospects, they don't have any All-Americans, not even a player on the first team Big East team. But I'm gonna have to go with the upset pick though. I like the South Dakota State team a lot. They have Baylor Shireman, who's been able to hit a three from anywhere on the floor, and averaging 86.7 points per game, second to only Gonzaga, of course. But I'm going to have to go with the upset pick the Jackrabbits to move on. But should be a fun one. Next up, we got 6-seeded LSU, doesn't even have a coach right now. Will Wade was fired due to a string of NCAA recruiting violations. And the 11-seeded Iowa State Cyclones, who have been surprisingly good this year. They've had a tough end of the season, but in the tournament nonetheless. What do you think?
I'm only going with the upset, James, because of the turmoil that LSU is in right now. I just don't think they're going to be able to put anything together to rectify the season. I like Iowa State in this one.
And like you said, I'm going to have to go Iowa State just because of question marks about how they're going to really run a team together. LSU has been a great team all season. I think if they keep Will Wade, they have the tools needed to make a run in kind of a weak Midwest region, maybe even get to the Final Four. But obviously, like you said, Will Wade's out the building, and they are going to go with an interim coach now for the remainder of the tournament. But I'm going to have to go Iowa State, who, like might I say, Steve Prohm has done a terrific job in Ames so far. Next up, we got a 3-14 matchup. Seems like Colgate is always a 14 seed looking to upset a 3 seed. We got Wisconsin taking on Colgate.
I think I like Wisconsin. I just think that, you know, the Ivy League is, like I said earlier, is okay, you know, but I think that Colgate is just gonna struggle with Wisconsin, even if Wisconsin's middle of the Big Ten. I like Wisconsin.
And I'm the same way. Wisconsin, this kind of seems like a home game being played in Milwaukee. But this Colgate team, they can shoot the ball. But I just think Wisconsin's Johnny Davis is going to be too much. Johnny Davis has been, talk about amazing. He's been terrific this season. Definitely one of, if not the best players in college basketball. Up there with Oscar Tshiebwe for Player of the Year. But I'm going to have to go with the favorite pick. I'm going to go Wisconsin here for the win, and they move on to the second round. Next up, we got another 7-10 matchup, which I think will be a lot of fun. We got USC taking on a Miami team that's really overperformed a ton this year, but Miami.
I like Miami in this one, and this goes back to my, the Pac-10 being overrated a little bit. The Miami team, they competed with the upper echelon of the ACC all year. So I like Miami.
I like this Miami team a lot. I like that Cameron McGusty has really shown up this season. He was a first-team All-American. He's averaging 19 a game. Isaiah Wong is doing what they all expected him to do, lead the team, be their starting point guard. But I'm going to go USC. I've been a big believer in this USC team this year. They've gone through the ups and downs. I've always thought Andy Enfield was a very underappreciated coach. No one's really realized how great of a coach he was. And, they've had a ton of talent the past couple of years. They had Evan Mobley, who was the third pick and probably the NBA Rookie of the Year this season. But I'm going to go USC over Miami. Like I said, they've overperformed a ton. They've competed with top-tier teams. They beat Duke earlier this year in Miami. So it's going to be a fun one, but I'm going to go USC in this one. And now we wrap it up. Our last first-round matchup, we got 2-seeded Auburn taking on a team that didn't even win their conference tournament, but were put in, due to their regular season championship that we'll get into in a minute, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. What do you think?
I like Auburn in this game. The SEC is, they're my number two. They're my number two conference in the country. So I think that they'll be able to handle Jacksonville State fairly well.
And I'm with you on this one. I like this Auburn team a lot. Bruce Pearl, Boston native. He's done a great job. And the only question marks that I have about them, it's not really going to, I don't think, affect them in the first round, but maybe the second or third round, is their inconsistent guard play. They've struggled in the backcourt this season. And if it weren't for Jabari Smith, who might be the number one pick, and Walker Kessler in the front court, I don't know if they're in the spot they're in. But I've been a big fan of this team. Jacksonville State is a team that didn't even win their conference tournament. They are in the Atlantic Sun. The conference championship was Jacksonville versus Bellarmine. Bellarmine is ineligible due to their transition period, just moved in from D2 a couple years ago. So due to Jacksonville State winning the regular season title, they were given a berth since Bellarmine did win the conference tournament championship. But I'm going to go with Auburn in this one. And that wraps up the first round. Hopefully you guys tune in next episode for a recap of the first and second rounds. But without a doubt, it was a pleasure to have you guys for our first episode of the Madden Report, and see you next episode.